Chapter 10. Muddled Message.
This Prophet Muhammad is a sorcerer, a charlatan, a wizard telling lies. Allah said, I am planning a scheme against him.
By examining the Quran in the order it was revealed, and by adding the context of the Islamic traditions, a very disturbing trend emerges. The Islamic deity migrates from a nameless Lord to Ar-Rahman, and then to Allah. The spirit starts off demonic, personally involving itself in hellish torments. Then he journeys from foolish to fierce, moving from uninspired tongue-lashings to all-out brutality. The Quranic message evolved from simplistic Hanif traditions to dumbed-down subsets of Judaic Talmud, finally settling upon Qusay's arcane pagan rituals. All of these were used to give a terrorist manifesto a veil of religiosity. Then, in a perverse twist of irony, the peoples who supplied the raw materials for Islam became its enemies. The Hanifs were defeated in the bloodiest battles of the War of Compulsions. The Jews suffered genocide at Muhammad's hand. Even the Meccans, who nurtured the pagan religious scam, were conquered by the religion they had inspired. Muhammad was always running away from his God. It was as if proximity was a problem. When he was in Mecca with Allah, his dark spirit was Ar-Rahman. Away in Medina, he became Allah. God was always just far enough away to insulate the prophet from his detractors' claims of non-performance. There is something else odd, too. The more Muhammad distanced himself from Allah, and the closer he moved toward the Jews and their repository of Scripture, the more the Quran started to sound like the Hebrew Bible, or at least the Talmud. Yet the longer Muhammad stayed with the Jews, the more his God grew to hate them. Ultimately, he ordered his prophet to annihilate the people of the book, upon which Islam's credibility was based. History condemns Islam, which is why Muslims rewrite it. Listen to this attempt by Muddled, our Quran expert.
The general chaos and confusion prevailing in Arabia, in which the whole country was in turmoil, has been presented as an argument. Bloodshed, loot, plunder raged on every side. Tribes were subjecting tribes to raids, and no one could have peaceful sleep at night from fear that some enemy tribe might raid his settlement early in the morning. Every Arab was fully conscious of this state of affairs and realized that it was wrong.
There is no thought in all of Islamic scholarship that is as essential, as indicting, or as intolerant as this one. Yet the revisionist image of pre-Islamic Arabs as bloodthirsty raiders is widely accepted. Its derogatory overtones are preached because they are essential to the religion's survival. The ugly Arab theory is postulated to fool the feeble-minded into believing that in the context of his times, Muhammad was a godly man, and that Islam made bad men good. But neither hypothesis is true. There is no historical evidence of Arabs conquering their neighbors before Islam. After Islam, Muslims conquered much of the world. Before Islam, there is no evidence of Arabs being looters who terrorized in violent raids. But that all changed with the advent of Muhammad. Having failed as a religious prophet in Mecca, Allah's messenger became a profiteer and pirate in Medina. Muslims put Arabia in turmoil, spilling blood for plunder. They became a gang who terrorized, raiding settlements and caravans alike. They knew terror, murder, thievery, and the slave trade were wrong, yet they did these things all the same. Their consciences were simply assuaged by the Quran. Muhammad and his God said that booty was good, and that killing was the surest way to reach the Islamic paradise. 7th century Arabs were illiterate, isolated, and perhaps even ignorant, but there is no evidence that they were bloodthirsty raiders. Islam turned good men bad. That's why today's Muslims find it essential to revise their past and invert truth. But it is their past, their actual history, that indicts them. Simply stated, Islam perverts men. The closer one gets to it, the more one surrenders to its calling, the more one emulates its prophet and follows the Quran, the more perverted one becomes. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Only the good ones are. To find out why, let's return to the Quran. The 106th surah, named after Muhammad's tribe,
the Quraysh,
presents the nature of things before Islam.
Quran 106 verse 1. For the protection of the Quraysh, there are covenants covering the journeys of trading caravans, so that they can travel safely by winter and summer. So let them worship the Lord of this house, the Kaaba, he who provides them with food and with security against fear and danger.
This is a fairly accurate reflection of pre-Islamic Mecca, its caravans, covenants, protective months, and Kaaba. The 100th surah foreshadows what was to come.
Quran 100 verse 1. I call to witness the cavalry steeds, the snorting coursers that run breathing, pantingly, rushing off to battle, striking sparks of fire, scouring to the raid at dawn, raising clouds of dust as they penetrate deep into the mist of foe en masse.
The most vicious Islamic raids deployed cavalry. As such, the Prophet molded his religion to reward those who fought astride horses. The kind of religious fighting hinted at in the 100th surah came to be known as jihad. The Quran would call it Allah's cause, but by either definition it became Islam's principal attribute and its most enduring symbol.
Bukhari. A man came to Allah's apostle and said, Instruct me as to such a deed as equals jihad and reward. He replied, I do not find such a deed. Then he added, Can you, while the Muslim fighter is still in the battlefield, enter your mosque to perform prayers without ceasing and fast forever? The man said, But who can do that?
In other words, eternal fasting and prayer is less religious than being a jihadist murderer. Cavalry was essential to his success, so the religious prophet crafted scripture to reward man and mount.
Bukhari. The Prophet said, Good will remain in the foreheads of horses for jihad, for they bring about a reward in paradise or booty.
The best of both worlds theme was how Muhammad would ultimately sell Islam to his gang of misfits.
Bukhari again. The Prophet said, If somebody keeps a horse in Allah's cause, motivated by his promise, then he will be rewarded for what the horse has eaten or drunk, and for its dung and urine. Allah's apostle said, Horses are kept for one of three purposes. For some they are a source of reward, for others a means of shelter, and for some a source of sins. The one for whom they are a source of reward is he who keeps a horse for Allah's cause, that is, jihad.
As we move from the delusion of Mecca to the terror of Medina, keep these hadith in mind. To Muhammad, Allah's cause was synonymous with jihad, and both were about fighting. The Quran's 7th century version of Blitzkrieg was followed by
Quran 100 verse 6. Lo, a man is an ingrate to his Lord. To that fact he bears witness by his deeds. Violent is he in his love of worldly goods, tenacious in the pursuit.
From the day he arrived in Yathrib to the day he died, Muhammad's
deeds
were
violent.
He led terrorist raids in
tenacious pursuit of worldly goods.
Islam's prophet was the most violent and covetous man ever to have spoken on God's behalf. As such, these words bear witness to the fraud he perpetrated and to his hypocrisy.
Quran 100 verse 9. Does he not know, when that which is in the graves is poured forth, and the secrets of men are exposed, that their Lord will be aware?
The secrets buried in the victims' graves cry out, Muhammad must be exposed. At this point, I would like to alter course. There is only so much ugliness one can endure without a break. So rather than dissect the remainder of the early Meccan revelations in their entirety, I'm going to provide a Best of Muhammad by subject. But first, a Maududi introduction.
These surahs were sent down when persecution of Muslims was near its climax. Their theme was to warn the disbelievers of the evil consequences of the persecution and tyranny that they were perpetrating